I just got back from wizarding school. Don't judge me. So anyway, here we are for something really, really different. It has been a long while since I made a Magic the Gathering related video. Even longer since I made something related to Magic Set Editor. I was the one who had created some custom cards back in the day, and some pretty bad ones. Especially the Doomsday set, because honestly, I didn't know what the hell I was doing there. Now, here is a joke set. In fact, if you could see in the top left corner, it is called Unchained, in the same spirit as the other unsets that are actually a part of the Magic game. These are two joke sets Wizard made with some really weird card effects that are not sanctioned for tournament play, unglued and unhinged respectively. I really wish that I'd gotten a piece of the action, because like the unhinged set was like 2004, and I wasn't really playing Magic back then. I was probably like 9 or something, maybe 10. So anyway, I decided to do something special for 500 subscribers. In fact, this was actually decided last minute. I did not have plans, but then realized that it may be interesting to talk about some of the Unchained cards. Plus, you'll probably also learn a bit more about me and where I'm coming from based on some of the design decisions I made for some of these cards. You'll probably know more about some of the games I've played and just, yes. So we're going to start with the white cards, the blue cards, so on and so forth. We're going to go all the way down, and then you're going to get the cards that are specific to video games. I actually chose 5 video games. I didn't choose Mario. I think that would have been obvious. So anyway, let's start with the white cards. Not specific to any video game. As you can see here, you are looking at Atenle Igpes Urske. Or if you would read that in proper English, Latin Pig's Curse. This is an aura curse. You enchante ane airplay. And every way, I'm not gonna bother reading the pig Latin. You're gonna get annoyed. Needless to say, whenever enchanted player, they do not want to have this on them. This is a bad thing. Whenever enchanted player speaks a non-pig Latin word, they lose 8 life, and then the Latin pig's curse is gone. So once they play this on you, you have to speak everything in pig Latin, or you're gonna lose 8 life. And if you're like 8 or less life, and you can't get rid of this like any other way, you gotta speak the rest of the game in pig Latin or you lose. And I had a lot of fun with this flavor text. Note the stars. These are curse words being said in pig Latin. Fucking shit respectively, which come out to be Ukfe! Itche! Whoever this is clearly not happy about this curse. They are swearing. And they're swearing in pig Latin because. Moving on. I actually included some. Honestly, aside from Champions of Kamigawa, you have never really seen flip cards like these. Well, mainly because it's really tough to fit 2 different pictures into one card, so yeah. I decided to go with the old classic Robert Louis Stevenson, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which got turned into like a really horrible game that I know about from Angry Video Game Nerd. So here it is. You spend 4 mana for a 1/1. During your upkeep, flip this card. And when we flip the card, okay, I want to see if I can rotate it upside down. Dr. Jekyll, during your next upkeep, will become Mr. Hyde. He is a 5/5, and he has a really special kind of intimidate. Not by card color, but by border color. Can't be blocked except by creatures that share a border color with it. So only cards with a gray border. And you're going to see that the cards specific to video game culture do not have the gray borders. In fact, they have a border that is a border that's sort of color coded as to what game they're from. So only other uncards and the cards that are not specific to video games from this set can block Mr. Hyde. And then here we have Funny Day. I really had little ideas in the beginning. This was one of the earliest Unchained cards. Tell your opponent a funny joke. If he or she laughs, prevent all damage dealt to you and your creatures this turn. Yeah. It's like, in fact, it's actually a parody of Holy Day, which prevents all combat damage and is also 1 white mana and an instant. And then here. Okay. I updated Magic Set Editor, and apparently Landwalk now displays reminder text by default. When I was designing this set, it didn't. Hatwalk should read, this player creature is unblockable if defending player wears a hat, but now we're also getting this other reminder text, which is just lol. Can't be blocked as long as defending player controls a hat. Like, how would that work? There are no hat creatures in Magic. There never have been, and there never will be. Not even from me in this unset. Like, why? So you got a 3/3 for 4 mana. Can't be blocked if they're wearing a hat. And if they take the hat off, they take 5 damage. I should probably add something as some sort of rule that while Hatful Knight is on the stack, they can't take off their hat, because I wasn't even thinking that deeply about it. Anyway, haters gonna wear hats. I had a tough time with coming up with good flavor text, and even then, I think this is pretty shitty. I actually wanted to have a rabbit tribal theme. Yes, you're getting something really awkward. You get a King of the Bunnies, a 2/1 for 4 mana. You bunny hop for 5 seconds to destroy a non-rabbit, non-land permanent. Continuing on with the rabbit theme, Magic Carrot. An enchantment that taps, strange enough. Even stranger, you have to eat a carrot as part of the cost to regenerate target rabbit. Of course, this only applies to a really specific creature race, and also the things with Changeling. You could probably regenerate those too. We then have the middleman, who literally is supposed to be the guy that is shorter than somebody else, but also taller than someone else too. He's a 1/1 for 1 mana. Yeah, we see a lot of these 1-drops, but this guy gets +1/+2, so you could have a 2/3 for 1 mana if you are shorter than one of your opponents, and you are taller than another opponent. Like, when I say event, like, imagine this set is drafted, like, everyone who enters, you are not the tallest, nor are you the shortest person among all the people that have entered. If that's the case, then you're going to have a 2/3 for 1 mana. The more people that enter, the more likely that's going to be true, so you'd probably want to enter a huge Unchained event, which will never ever happen, I don't think. And then, I went and made a Swords to Plowshares parody. Swords to Golf Clubs, no really. Exile target creature, and then I went further than exiling creatures. Like, when you exile a creature, it's not going to come back from the graveyard. That stops that from happening. But I went further to the point where it is removed from the remainder of the event. Like, once that card is gone, you cannot use it for the rest of the event. Like, let's say this is a 3-round tournament we're playing. Round 1, someone sorts the golf club's my best creature. I cannot use that creature for, like, for the next 2 rounds. Like, it's gone. The whole event. And its controller gains life equal to its toughness. Much like how Swords of Plowshares gives them life in exchange for their creature. Whistle while you play. Oh, jeez. 5 mana. It's kind of an expensive card. Target player must play target song, okay, by whistling it during their entire next turn. Okay, that sounds like it's going to be really hard for someone to manage, unless they play their turn super fast. Most likely on purpose. If they can't whistle their best song, or whatever song you give them, you draw 4 cards. Oh, I don't know. Next one! Of course, we have to parody the original board wipe, Wrath of God. In fact, fun fact, this was actually a card that was going to be in one of the unsets, but never really happened. Wrath of Dog. Get the joke? Because dog is God spelt backwards. You are only allowed to cast Wrath of Dog if you own a pet dog. And of course, if you do, you get the same effect of Wrath of God for 1 colorless mana less. If you want a pet dog, then seriously, get this card. Having a 4 mana board sweeper is good enough, but 3? Holy shit. Now on to the blue cards, where we're getting something really interesting. The Albatross that screams Albatross. We have a 2/2 for 2 mana that flies. But with that kind of power, you get a drawback. During your upkeep, you have to write albatross on this card and say albatross once for each albatross word written on it. Or you sacrifice the albatross. And yes, these words accumulate. And they do not get removed from the card after the game is over. So let's say, like, you have this card on the field for like 3 turns, and then you begin your next game, and then you put it down, and then your next upkeep comes around, you write the word albatross on it, there's like 4 of them, and then you have to scream like, albatross, 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 so you can keep it on the field. Just wait until you see one of the other cards in this color, like, it is nuts. And then, I had a little fun with the Duck Song video. Yes, Duck Song Duck. This is the kind of art you would never see on a Magic card. Way too cartoony for the world of Magic. For damn sure. Yes, if you don't have any grapes, Duck Song Duck will waddle away. Yes, the Duck Song goes something like, and the duck... Okay, that was just embarrassing. All I know is the duck asks the guy, you got any grapes? And then the lemonade's like, no, we don't. Lemonade is always ever sold. And then he waddled away. Yeah. Just look it up. You'll get, like, the whole actual, like... I don't even remember it that well. I just remembered it vaguely for the grapes because I made a card based on it. Now I'm going to give you Letter Express. Which doesn't have art, unfortunately, but this was a really funny idea to have based on the last or first letters of card names. Choose target non-land permanent you don't control. Put a non-land permanent from your hand onto the battlefield if its first letter is the same as the last letter of the chosen permanent. So I want to see if I can come up with a quick example here. So let's say you have, like, okay, I'm trying to think of a Magic card that ends with an E, because I know which card I'd put on the battlefield if that was the case. Clay Statue. There. It's some random card from antiquity, some overcosted artifact that regenerates. Let's say you have Clay Statue on the battlefield and Emrakul the Aeon's Tord in your hand. You could just play that onto the battlefield right away. Not like you'd get the extra turn, but you'd be putting that onto the battlefield because its first letter is an E and the last letter of the Clay Statue was also an E. Moving on. Liquid Guru. Yes, I really want to have fun with the whole glass of water. You have a 4/4 for 3 mana. This is really, really good in blue, so I have to give it a drawback. During your upkeep, drink a glass of water in 5 seconds or sacrifice Liquid Guru. The one problem is that this is actually pretty vague. It does not specify how big this glass of water must be. It could be like a tiny little sippy cup, or it could be like this huge-ass beer stein that you have to drink from. It's not said. You'll probably rather drink from the tiny little cup anyway, just to save your bladder some trouble. I have no idea how many of you would be able to know where this came from. Longbin Chen. He is an actual artist. He was famous for making Buddhist heads and even entire rooms out of old recycled phone books. Yes. And that's pretty much reflected in his ability. 1 blue and tap. Target phone book becomes a 4/4 colorless Buddhist head artifact creature token with haste until end of turn. So yeah, that 4/4 with haste, that's pretty big. But you have to use an actual phone book for the token. I think I just went crazy on this one. And then we got this name-changing official here. Okay, this guy honestly looks pretty creepy. Like, what the hell is going on with his chin? Why is all this gold metal covering it? Anyway, this guy you tap, yeah, not much to say about the power toughness compared to the mana cost, but name becomes the Magic card name of your choice until end of turn. I also wrote some pretty silly errata here, that it must exist in Magic, including cards from Doomsday, Water Magus. I actually uploaded videos of those 2 custom sets, well, the cards that had art. Reignite, this is another custom set I made. Corruption, another one. Rising, and this one right here, Unchained. Moving on to a counter spell that has an additional cost. Shouting 9. Yes, and that is Hitler from Inglourious Basterds shouting 9. Based on that scene where it's just like, 9999 there! Or something like that. So it's pretty much a counter spell where you just have to shout 9. Moving on. Perfect Luck. Which also has Shroud, so no one can target this enchantment. Costs a lot of mana, but for a good reason. You choose all outcomes for all die rolls and coin tosses when the abilities come from permanents you control. I thought for a second you would choose the outcome for everybody who rolled the dice or flipped the coin. But still. You get to choose whether or not your coin comes up heads or tails. I can imagine with Squeeze Revenge, you could just draw as many cards as you want as long as it's a multiple of 2. That card's like pick a number. If you win that many flips in a row, draw that many cards times 2. Except with this, you could just win every flip because you want to win every flip. And then, I actually decided to make it a theme where you have to speak words to use some of the card effects. And then there's a card called Shut Up, which prevents, well, actually they can say the chosen words, but errata would make it so these chosen words would have no sort of effect. And the flavor text is lyrics from an anal cunt song called Shut Up Mike Part 2. Yeah, they are a joke band. And now I'm going to give you something so different. Sonnets of a Sorcerer. Yes, this is another curse, just like the Latin Pig curse. If enchanted player doesn't speak in limericks, you get to draw 4 cards. And this is something you have to pay only 3 mana for. 4 cards for 3 mana, that is insane. And it's going to be pretty tough for someone to speak in limericks, honestly. Yeah, just look at the example I have here. It is not the best. Yeah, limericks are generally 5-line poems. Sonnets are 14 lines. In fact, I actually pulled this from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I think, like, it's written something like this. There was this forbidden library with books like Some Burned Your Eyes Out. Anyone who ever read Sonnets of a Sorcerer spoke in limericks for the rest of their lives. Which I found pretty ironic once I found out that a sonnet is 14 lines, but a limerick is only 5. Yeah. Now, spelling insignia, which unfortunately has no art, but I found this to be a really funny idea. Let's turn magic into a spelling test. 3 mana and you tap this artifact once a turn. You choose a card in your hand, you read the name out, but you don't actually reveal it, because the opponent has to correctly spell the name of the card. And then you show it to them after they've made their attempt. If they spelled incorrectly, draw 2 cards. Then again, I can imagine this could be hilarious with some of the weird uncards that already exist. There is this card known as our market research shows that players like really long card names, so we made this card to have the absolute longest card name ever, Elemental. I can imagine if we ever threw every uncard together, including these ones, and then you play spelling insignia, you tap, you read that out to them and ask them to spell it. Holy fucking shit, I think you'll just get the 2 cards. This is the card I was saying would make some really awkwardly hilarious conditions. Super duper paradox haze is blue, indestructible, and has shroud. Oh, now we have the color indicator, so we don't really need to say that it's blue. If at any time so if this card enters your hand, you have no choice but to put it on the battlefield, or even emphasizing immediately and no questions asked. Each player gets 2 extra upkeep steps after their own upkeep step. Remember the albatross that screams albatross? You'll be having to say albatross like way more than just a few times. Like you'll have to say it 3 times as many times. With Liquid Guru, you'd be drinking 3 times as many glasses of water, so on and so forth. If there's any other sort of upkeep cost, multiply it by 3 for every player. And this has to go on the battlefield as soon as it's drawn. It is super hard to get rid of. All this is on purpose just to make some hilariously stupid games in the unsets. And then I actually want to go for a theme with playing cards, 3 of a kind. Set up a shuffle deck of playing cards next to your deck of magic cards. Yeah, that's not confusing. During your upkeep, reveal the top 2 cards of that deck and put them in a face-up pile. Once 3 cards of the same number have been revealed, sacrifice 3 of the kind, then put these cards on. Okay. Put these cards onto the... Oh my god. So if you reveal 3 7s, you get 3/7/7 creatures. Ace's count was only 1? I thought Ace was the best card in the deck. That's strange. So like you just keep flipping cards over and you may end up with like 3 10 10s. If you get 3 kings, then holy crap. You're gonna kick some ass. Okay, now we're going to black. Curse of Midas. Another curse. This one would really suck to have placed on you. If enchanted player touches him or herself, he or she turns to gold and loses the game. This is directly reflecting the myth of King Midas, who everything he touched turned to gold, which turns out to be a bad thing because you wonder how he would possibly eat if his food just turns to gold and he could not eat it. And then there's also if whoever is unlucky enough to have this curse on them touches one of their cards they control, it turns to gold and is buried. I can't believe I actually had to use the old word buried. Like, why I decided to do this? I could have just said sacrifice. That is old terminology that's been phased out for a while now. This would probably be some really violent art, but I didn't go bother looking for it, because hey, domestic violence. Destroy target creature if that creature's controller is the opposite gender of yours, so if I'm playing against a woman and I blow up her creature, she also takes 3 damage. Well, actually loses 3 life, but yeah. I was actually going to have 2 versions of this card so I wouldn't piss off any women. I was going to have a version of with a man beating up a woman, and then I was going to have a version where the reverse held true. But yeah, I didn't really go bother finding the art. Here we go! Making fun of the emo people. Emo musician! You have a 3/3 through 2 mana, which is really good. There's also Wretched Anurid, and the drawback is not as bad as this one. But this is more of a for fun. When emo musician dies, yes, I quote, cut it in half and remove it from the remainder of the event. Like, once the card is cut in half, it's pretty much useless. And then I took it a step further with a legendary enchantment known as Emo. The very music itself. Yeah, that is a lot of mana to play. And then also just as much mana to use the ability. But when you do, it's pretty devastating unless they concede the game, because they lose one of their best cards and, like, it's just gone. Like, if you were playing against somebody and let's say you were targeting their Snapcaster Mage or their Tarmogoyf or especially someone's Black Lotus, they would definitely concede the game. Yes, if they don't concede the game immediately, they cut target non-land permanent in half, then remove it from the... Yeah. And then I actually also wanted to throw in the theme of anti. This was an actual concept of Magic that fell out of favor in 1995 because people were complaining about games of chance. This is where you would actually put the top card of your library and then the anti pool. Of course, this could be any card in your library. If you lose your anti. If you win the other player's anti. And there are actually a few other Magic cards that involve the anti rule. In fact, one of those is probably the best card in all of Magic, because it lets you draw 7 cards for 1 mana. Yeah. That's probably even crazier than the Black Lotus. I mean, 3 mana of any color, any one color, for 0 is crazy enough, but drawing 7 cards for 1 mana? Holy shit, I would take that. Even if I have to wager an extra card, but still. Of course, you cannot use it unless you're playing for anti, but honestly, nobody does. It's been gone since 1995. They got rid of it 20 years ago. But here we are back with the anti, the gambling problem. At the beginning of... Okay, this is another sort of curse that they do not want to have on them. At the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, any of his or her opponents may pay 3 colorless mana. Okay, maybe this is... Okay, whose is this? Any of his or her opponents. Yeah, this is a curse. So if I put this on my opponent, it's their turn. I could pay 3 mana during their turn, and they have to ante the top card of their library. Which, if I would beat them, I would just take it from them. Moving on. Grasp of the Incubus. And you're going to see its polar opposite right after this one. Each female player loses 4 life, and then you're going to see Grasp of the Succubus, in which each male player loses 4 life. This is more likely to have an effect, because there are more... Yeah. And now look. This has to be one of my favorite cards in the entire Unchained set. No card puts a smile on my face as much as this one. Get ready for Hangman! No, seriously, there is no art. Yes, you have a 4/4 for 3 mana, that is good, but there are drawbacks. During each of your upkeeps, you must do one of the following. This is actually reflecting on Hangman, which you draw the hanging post, and if there is a hanging post, you then draw the head. If there is a head, you then draw the body. If there is a body, you then draw legs. If there are legs, you then draw arms. And finally, if there are arms, you then draw dead eyes and a sad mouth, then sacrifice Hangman, and it's gone forever, because he is dead. And yeah, all the stuff you drew on it from previous games is going to stay there. This whole drawing on cards thing. Like, everything you put on the cards just stays there. So, like, Hangman's going to get strictly worse as an event would progress. Like, if you had him 2 turns, you'll have the hanging post on the head already. So that'll be less time you can spend with it on your side of the field. And now here is a parody of 2 uncards. One from Unglued and one from Unhinged, respectively. Now, we have the Infernal Spawn of Evil's Grandpa, which unfortunately has no art. But yeah, this probably would have been so funny. Okay, now I actually have to explain what Mind Blast is. You are able to cast this card from your library as you're searching it for that mana cost. And also, part of the mana cost is shouting, "I'm coming too," with an old man's voice. So it's going to be sounding something like, "I'm coming too!" Because yeah, this is some old grandfather coming after you. You got an 8/8 with Trample that has Kid Shroud, or Minor Shroud as I could call it, because it can't be targeted by spells or abilities controlled by people under the age of 18. So yeah, we could call it Minor Shroud, because minor is a term to use to describe someone under the age of 18. You get it? Let her rip. Board wipe in black. Real conditional one. Destroy all non-land permanents and begin with the letter of your choice. Of course, you could just get rid of whichever permanent you want, but I think I'd rather take out more than one. Moving on. Again with the land walk and the reminder text. Moonwalk is supposed to be unblockable as long as you can see the moon. And this is reflecting on Michael Jackson being well known for doing, of course, the moonwalk. 3/3 for 3 mana, that's pretty good, especially in black. But one of my favorite things about this card is the activated ability. It requires white mana, but he becomes white. He is no longer black, he becomes white. I found this so clever and brilliant, because Michael Jackson was black, but then, well, I think it was because of a skin disease, he bleached his skin and technically became white. And then, one word extinguisher. This is an instant for 1 black. Destroy target non-land permanent with only 1 word in its name. I'm pretty sure I showed you some of these already. Well, you saw emo, you could blow that up. And then there's some flavored text reflecting this whole 1 word thing. Leave Stang alone! Because, yeah, Stang is an actual magic card with, well, 1 word in its name. Yup. Because Peter Griffin is such a prick sometimes. Peter Griffin, bad fat man, who has trample as long as a player is eating. Because, yeah, Peter Griffin's the fat man. Makes sense. And also, the drawback to this is whenever another creature dies, you have to sacrifice the bad fat man, Peter Griffin, unless you insult that creature. This is actually kind of ripping off 2 uncards that previously existed. There was the fat ass, who gets +2/+2 as long as you're eating, and then there's the Mother of Runes parody, Mother of Goons. A 3/2 for 3 mana in black that you have to sacrifice her unless you insult a creature whenever it dies or something like that. Yeah, the Mother of Runes is a way better card, honestly. And I'm gonna conclude this part with Sleep On. Then I'm gonna move on to red, green, and some of the video game specific cards, where it's gonna get possibly more interesting. Sleep bond. Okay, now this is just so awkward. I can imagine how weird you must be if you're in, like, let's say if this was in a store or something. How weird it would look if you were just lying on the floor trying to play magic. As long as you're lying on the floor, enchanted creature can't attack or block. I don't know how you lying on the floor influences the creature's inability to attack or block, aside from the name of the card, Sleep Bond. I don't know what kind of bond that is, and I probably never will.